Hi everybody, welcome to another video. Catch up with me today, as you can see, in the kitchen. What I'm going to do, as the title of the video suggests, is show you how I make up my mashed bread. Now, I've had several messages on social media and sort of met up with a few people as well who've struggled a little bit with the consistency of mashed bread or how to get it exactly right. Now, I myself, I use two different consistencies mashed bread. I use a very stiff mix when I'm legering, when I'm feeder fishing, when I want the bread to get to the bottom, then break up. And I use a very sloppy mix when I'm trotting, because I want a big cloud in through the water column, few larger particles, which is the reason for using mashed bread. Perhaps I should touch on that a little bit. The whole point of using mashed bread, as opposed to perhaps liquidized bread, if you don't know, liquidized bread is literally that. You put the loaf in the liquidizer, basically crumb it down, and it's sort of a damp white crumb or brown crumb if you want. Tiny little particles, cloud up the water, go on the bottom, and it's perfect perhaps for smaller species, roach, perhaps dace, that kind of thing. My mashed bread really primarily is targeting chub and perhaps the odd bigger roach, but mainly chub. So what I want is the cloud, if you like, of tiny little particles that will cloud up, almost make the water milky, but also I want some bigger lumps in there that will replicate the flake that I'm going to put on the hook. That's the idea. So that's the reason for using mashed bread. Now, you don't want to spend any money really on bread that you're going to be chucking in the river. I'll just use this stuff from Tesco's. This is 39p a loaf. Now, probably a loaf will last me in the region of hour and a half, 2 hours, I reckon, something like that. I usually take two with me just in case they're really having it and you have to get the feed in, or perhaps they're really not having it and you need to get some feed in to get them going. But yeah, I usually take a couple of loaves with me mashed up, and I'm going to show you now how to mash it up. I usually do this at home. Well, I always do it at home, to be honest, because it's much easier. Stick it in the fridge, and then if you've got some left, stick it in the freezer. All you've got to do is chuck it in the freezer and it'll keep till the next trip. Defrost it and away you go again. It's as good as new. And I do prefer this. I've probably mentioned it in videos over on the main channel, but this does tend, certainly in the colder months, it tends to pick out the bigger fish. You don't get troubled with smaller fish. Perhaps you're targeting chub. You don't want to catch little roach or dace or minnows even. Whereas if you fish maggots, you're perhaps going to get more trouble, get more maggots from smaller fish. But the idea is this will target your bigger fish, and it's much cheaper as well. I mean, a pint of maggots is over £3, isn't it? And these, you can get 10 loaves for £3.90, which will do you, well, it'll certainly do me perhaps 5 sessions. You know, and a pint of maggots, what's going to last you if you're trickling it in, maybe hour and a half, something like that. So yeah, I do prefer fishing mashed bread when I can. Obviously, maggots have their place when you're perhaps doing a bit of roach fishing. I'm going to be doing a bit of roach fishing later in the week myself. Maggots are going to be the way to go, or perhaps bread punch. But I shall use ground bait that day, get a bit of smell in the water, because where I'm going is 11, 12 foot deep. We want to get right to the bottom and get some smell around the bottom. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'll show you how to prepare this for both stiff mix and wet mix. Now, what I've got here, as you can see, is a couple of bowls. A washing up bowl, which doesn't actually fit in the sink, so that's quality, isn't it? But this is from a previous house. And we've also got a bowl, so one for mixing and one for soaking in. Simple as that, really. So what I'm going to do is, I'll use this one so you can see what's going on. I'm just going to put a bit of water in here. It is very simple, this. Consistency can be a bit tricky, but it is very simple to do. All we're going to do, bust this open. You can use the crusts and all. I tend to do 2 slices at a time, but you'll need to get a feel for this. You can see all right. Let's point you down a bit. You don't be looking at me at this point. What I tend to do is a couple of slices at once. Just dunk them in like that. And this is why I do it on the training board. And that's it. Let them drip off. Obviously, if you've got slightly drier bread, slightly staler bread, you'll have to give it a bit more of a soak. But that's it. For a sloppy mix, this is how I do it. A couple of slices, just get a bit of air out, I don't want to absolutely saturate it. We'll perhaps do 3 and see how we get on. This bread is a little bit fresher than I normally use. I'm getting through it lately, so I've got some fresh in there. I don't want too much, as I say, in there. Right, we'll have a go at this. Let's have a look. So all we'll do, literally, is going to get my hands in there, mash this up. Hence the name mashed bread. And it gets a bit squidges everywhere, as you can see, which is what I do in this washing up bowl. But that's it. It's done. And as you can see, it's like sort of sloppy porridge. Now, that's perfect for me. That's exactly as I'd like it for trotting. That will cloud up beautifully in the water. We'll have a look at this in a minute. We'll get it in a pot and have a look exactly how it clouds up. But that's what I want. As you can probably see, there's some bigger lumps in there. There's some bits of crust in there, but it'll cloud up lovely, that will. That is my sloppy mix. We'll get that up the corner there. See, it's not, you'll probably see better if I shove it up there. It's not that wet that it'll just run into a big pile, but it's quite wet, as you can see. Now, when I want to fish with this in a feeder, or maybe want to throw some balls in that will get to the bottom, same thing again. But what I do this time is that. Squeeze all the water out that I can. I'll do a couple of these. As you can see, I didn't show you, it sort of ends up like that. We'll do a couple. Saturate it the same. We'll get rid of all that excess moisture. All that water. I squeeze out everything I can out of there. What we'll do, we'll get rid of that water. We'll squidge this up in here. Again, we'll break it up exactly as before. But you can probably see that is a lot more, it's a lot stiffer, a lot stodgier. Bring that over to the camera. It's a lot stiffer. And that'll go in a feeder lovely. That'll stay in a feeder. And I can ball it up, as you see, like that. Make nice balls out of that. And that will get to the bottom in, 5, perhaps 6 foot of water. I can ball that up. Now, of course, you can adjust all of this, any of this that you need to adjust, you can adjust just with some dry crumb. You can just put some, if you find you've made it a bit sloppy and you need to throw it a bit further than perhaps you can, all you've got to do is stick a bit of white crumb in there. You'll dry it out, obviously. Now, a friend of mine, Mick, who fishes the local area as well, he found the other day he'd slopped his up too much. What he actually did, he had some dynamite, zig and cloud, I think it's called, some like zig mix. And he stuck that in there, and he said that dried it up beautifully. Made a wonderful cloud in the water as well. And he actually had a 5.10 I think, chub that day. So, that clearly works as well. And he said it clouded the water up beautifully, and it's all about getting the smell in the water, getting the water clouded up. And as the bigger particles go through, the chub will home in on the bigger ones, and then your bit of flake will go through. It look just the same. That's the idea anyway. Right, I think what we'll do now is we'll have a look at exactly how this reacts in the water. So guys, I've got the kids' old fish tank set up here, so we can have a look at exactly how this performs underwater. I've not actually done this before. I've done it in pint glasses and stuff to check consistencies, but never on this scale, so it's be quite interesting as well. I think we better do the stiff stuff first, because that stuff hopefully will cloud up the water, and we'll be able to see a lot once we've thrown that in. But this stiffer mix, I'm hoping will get straight to the bottom, so let's have a go. There we go. As you can see, it's got straight to the bottom. Now that will start to break up over the next few minutes. I can see bits falling off it already, hopefully you can see on the camera. But that's just breaking up now. Perhaps before we put in the mash, we'll do a little time lapse on that and see exactly how it breaks up. Now, interestingly, as you can see, we've got a piece of crust that's actually just broken off and floated upwards. That's not a problem at all. I'll be quite happy with that because that's going to attract any fish from downstream. That's kind of the point of mash bread. What we've got to bear in mind, it's been now perhaps 3 minutes. This has been in the water 3 or 4 minutes, and that's broken down lovely. Now, obviously, all my fishing's done on a river, and that's going to have broken up a lot more than that in the river. There's still some solid bits there, but a lot of it's breaking up. As you can see, it would be washing off downstream, which is perfect. We've got our little floating bit as well. Worth bearing in mind as well, though, that this is very freshly mashed up, so the longer it goes on, the less likely it is to have air in it like that and bits float. And that's quite interesting. Right, I think time for the mash. A sloppy mash, I should say. And as you can see, you can probably see there, it's very wet. It's very wet. Some of the liquid's coming out. I mean, you could pour some of that off if you wanted. It's all about how far you've got to throw it, really. That's the main thing with the sloppy stuff. But hopefully, we should be able to see what this does in the water. Let's slop that in. There we go. Now that's perfect. That's just what we want. Bigger bits, smaller bits, clouding up the water. Again, we've got a floater. Well, that's what you get with your sloppy stuff. Again, you've got to imagine the current is washing that downstream. It doesn't drop nearly as quickly as that when it's in the river. Let's just put one more in. There we go. Let's put it a bit closer to the front so we can see it better. But you can see how that's clouding the water up. That's what you want when you're trotting. That's perfect. We've got a couple of floaty bits, just bits of crust. Again, not overly concerned about that. They'll be washing off downstream. And it may even find you some chub, because even in the winter, the chub will take off the top. And if they see some of those, and it's happened to me in the past, I've been roaming down a river and it got me a cracking session once, to be honest. I was really, really, really struggling. Throwing mash into a few swims. I ended up with a few floating bits like this. Some chub took off the top. It was only perhaps December. Some chub took off the top and started trotting. And I had a bite of chub for about 3/4 of an hour. Nothing huge. Biggest was about 1.5 pounds. And I was catching lots of chublets like this, but it was literally a bite of chub. I must have caught 20 or 30 chub in 3/4 of an hour on a day when I'd fished perhaps 8 swims and caught nothing. So don't worry at all about those floating bits. They might even put you onto some fish. I can't resist having one more go in. This is very interesting. But you can see how cloudy that water's gone now with this mash. All those bits, it's what you want, the slightly bigger bits in there. Replicates your flake. Your flake goes through, looks just like that. That's been very interesting for me, to be honest. I hope you guys have found that interesting as well. It's something, as I say, which I've been asked about several times on social media, and I just wanted to make a little video of how I do it. Hard and soft, that's what you need to know, and that's how I mix it, and it's as simple as that. So hopefully that's inspired you to perhaps have a go with the mashed bread. And if you want to see it in action and you've not seen me fishing over on my main channel, Avon Angling UK, I'll stick a card up there. You can go over and have a look at the main channel. That's where I do all my fishing vlogs. My fishing sessions are over there, and I've been using this method to great success in the last few months. It's been wonderful. I've had some cracking hits of fish. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you get something useful from it as well. And hopefully it will catch you a few fish. Tight lines, enjoy your own angling. Many thanks to the channel patrons for your fantastic support, and I'll see you all again very soon.